There we go. So if you have a friend or you know someone that can't be here tonight that would enjoy this talk, in a couple of weeks, it'll be up on the Atlantic Institute YouTube page, Atlantic SC. And the Atlantic Institute website is atlanticsc.org. And I usually play a video about that, but since I'm on my phone, I'm not sure how to do that. So I'll just tell you a little about the Atlantic Institute. Basically, the way I like to break it down is they do these free online discussions that help promote a better global community. That's the best way I like to describe it. So things that are going to bring people together, make our communities stronger. And I picked this topic because it just means a lot to me, and I think it's really important. So art in public spaces, building community and identity. I've always loved public art, and I think it's really important. And so I got started to do this discussion, and I got two speakers with us. One is Pamela Zeljak, and Pamela is the public art administrator at One Columbia here in Columbia, South Carolina. So we're very happy to have her with us. And then we also have a muralist, a public artist with us, McClellan Douglas Jr. And McClellan is a self-taught artist from Columbia, South Carolina, known primarily for his large-scale mural work. In his early 20s, he saw a market starting to McClellan Douglas Jr. as a self-taught artist from Columbia, South Carolina, known primarily for his large-scale mural work. Sorry, guys. In his early 20s, he saw a market starting to emerge for his unique style of large-scale trompe-l'oeil and mural work in the businesses and homes. After creating mural work for two local trampoline parks, he spent the next 10 years becoming the industry's premier artist for indoor adventure parks. His unique process of creating immersive experiences with his art became its own attraction inside these parks. And while he continues to be a premier artist in the industry today, McClellan and his Interactive Artworks team have produced the art direction, mural work, and commercial paint for over 150 parks internationally to date. For his unique style of large-scale trompe-l'oeil and mural work in businesses and homes. After creating mural work for two local, okay, I'm sorry, it repeats. My apologies. So that's a little bit about McClellan. But, we have a couple more people joining in. And also, if you have any questions while Pamela or McClellan are talking, if you'll just put them on over in the comments and I will ask those at the end, that would be great. And also, if you could stick in there where you're from too, because we always like to know where our audiences are from. But at this point, I am going to turn it over to Pamela. Pamela's going to talk first, and then we'll go on over to Helen. But I'm going to turn it over to Pamela now.
Okay. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen with you all. You know, public art, it's nice to see some art while you're talking about it. Okay, so there are a few things that I just wanted to kind of go over real quickly, kind of the basics. So what is public art? And it's simply just any art that's in a public space. It can have a really wide range of forms, sizes, media, temporary or permanent. And the history of public art is basically art history. Let me jump to that slide. Oh, sorry, this isn't letting me go forward my slides. Okay, here we go. So probably most people learn about the earliest art being cave paintings, and those were in public, so that is public art. Moving through time, you'll see a lot of bronzes that are depictions of post-war leaders and events, and also Middle Ages architectural embellishments. And then public art continued to grow as other art history grew. In the 30s and 40s, there were public artwork like the one you see in the bottom left, the Thomas Hart Benton, that are part of the Works Progress Administration. In the 60s and 70s, there was a development of a lot of large freestanding sculpture. I have this one here on the right, but also if you know of the one, there's a Picasso in Chicago. It was one of the earliest ones in the United States. And then in the 80s, public art became a mechanism of community activism. And that's when we also started seeing some ephemeral and temporary works come about. And then in the 90s, public art serves as community building. And in the 2000s, you can see involving interactive media, projection mapping, virtual reality, alternative reality, and other types of new media. So that's kind of a quick background of the history. What are some types of public art that you might be familiar with or that you might not be familiar with? Murals and sculptures, I think, is what comes to mind for most people. But there's also architectural integration. On the left, that's in an airport. It's a kind of glass screening. New media art projects like you see on the bottom there, that is a digital screen that wraps around the Pittsburgh Convention Center, and temporary projects. Also participatory art projects. On the right, there's one similar to that one that maybe you have seen or participated in. It's called Before I Die, where participants are able to come up and write on basically a chalkboard. Landworks up on the left, and then also there on the bottom. So why is public art important? And I think that's the reason why we're here talking today. The first one I wanted to talk about is economic growth and sustainability. So how does public art bring money into the local economy? One of those things is cultural tourism. If you've ever gone and visited another place specifically to go to a museum or go to a concert, that's cultural tourism. Public art creates areas that stand out as developers are looking for businesses and residential renters. They might do a mural or a sculpture out front. It kind of helps people signify and remember that place. And also, it attracts artists and art design businesses to the area where they can see public art out front and center. Another benefit is residential attachment and community identity. Public art makes communities unique by creating a space of place and identity. There we go. Those are the right words. And when residents can see themselves reflected in the art in their civic spaces, they have a sense of ownership over that space. Another point is that attachment to a location is key in retention of residents and commuters. And you can see that quote on the screen there, that 50% of people with college degrees between the ages of 26 and 57 say they would strongly consider whether a community is rich in the arts when deciding to locate for a job. And public art creates a healthy overall arts ecosystem in the community. So artists and other creatives bring innovation and problem solving to their communities that strengthens the community's competitiveness in the business market. Artists and creatives provide valuable contributions when they're included in planning processes with city planners, engineers, designers, elected officials, and community stakeholders. And public art also fosters a sense of understanding. It doesn't tell me which number slide I'm on, so I want to make sure I'm on the right one. Okay, here we go. Public art creates visual storytelling that emphasizes shared humanity, allowing individuals to better understand neighbors and strangers. And art really lifts us up beyond our everyday experiences, help us understand perspectives that are different than our own. And public art and infrastructure projects like train stations, hospitals, and airports helps communities with social engagement. And during the pandemic, public art was one of the only things that you could see, the only kind of art you could see. Museums were closed, galleries were closed. And there were so many conversations that I know, and I lived in Florida at that point, that were triggered in our local area because people who would never have crossed paths before are coming out because they just need to get outside and seeing public art together. So what about public art and health? We all want healthy communities. We all want better mental and physical health for our communities. So public art promotes a sense of well-being, which in turn supports both physical and mental well-being. And artwork located in healing spaces improves healthcare and the healing process by providing an aesthetically interesting place for providers to work and for patients to heal. So how does public art happen in a community? How could you get public artwork in your community? So I would first encourage you to speak to your city manager, your mayor, your city council, members of your county commission. Tell them why public art is important to you personally. And I would be happy to share any of this information later on, like the PowerPoint if anybody would want it. So how does a community come together to create public art? First, you have your public art administration. So these are the persons or agencies that develop and implement the plan. I'm a public art administrator, so that's what I do. I work for One Columbia for Arts and Culture. We're the local arts agency. And a lot of times cities will turn to nonprofits to help them with public art. I will talk about that more in a second, but your public art administration is persons or agencies that help develop and implement the plan. They help set and drive the goals and priorities of the project. They select the location and type of public art, can help identify funding sources and manage the budget, structures and assigns duties to the staff or team, and creates and carries out the policies and procedures. So in areas, arts administrator could fall to a municipal agency, like an Office of Cultural Affairs. A lot of cities have those, or it could be a local arts agency like we have in Columbia with One Columbia, or a private entity like a nonprofit. But projects can also be artist driven, coming completely from the artists. Also, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on, is private developers are also some are commissioning agencies for public art. So if you decide that you want to do a public art project in your community, and you have made a partnership with either an artist or an arts agency, first you want to do research and development in the community. You find out if there's adequate resources to be able to carry it out, but the goals and the objectives of the project really should come from the community. Whenever I do a public art project, one of the first things we do once we get an advisory team together is put surveys out in the community or hold community meetings. Your advisory team should include stakeholders, city staff or officials, definitely community members from the location where the public art is going, business leaders and artists in the art and design community. Sometimes depending on the commissioning body, they'll ask for the project plan to be sent to an arts commission or a city council. So that's something to know before you get too far into a public art project. What's the approval mechanisms? Another thing you think about when you're going through these projects is maintenance. Public art is not permanent. Even when it's permanent public art, it's not permanent, it's not there forever. Murals can have a lifespan depending on paint, and if the artist used a coating or not, from 10 to 20 years. Sculpture can last a little bit longer depending on what it's made of. Bronzes will last forever and ever. But you always have to think about maintenance. So we require anybody that we work with to commission a piece of art to set aside 20% of what we pay the artist. That goes into a maintenance fund. That way, if they need maintenance either by because of vandalism or just because of the age of the work, we have that money set aside to be able to do that. Other parts of maintenance that people don't typically think about is having an artwork database. Disaster preparedness, especially depending on where you are in the country. You should have a disaster plan You know, it may be for hurricanes or flooding or fires. And then like I said, the money that you have for carrying out the conservation and the restoration. I think I'm talking faster than I'm flipping through slides. Yeah. So once the art's in place, how do you ensure that it lives on and remains relevant to your community? And really the best way to do that is to have an education plan. You can work with the artists to have the artists come back and talk about the work. You can take the themes of the work and talk about those later. You can engage with schools and museums. And so this actually now in the images you're going to see are public artwork that's in Columbia. I don't know how many of the people here are actually from Columbia, but some of it you may recognize, some of it's pretty new. Like the image right here is brand new. I think that this has been up since April, this installation. So how do you get funding for public art? Some cities have a percent for art program, and then that is between 0.5% to 2% of the city's capital improvement projects. So when they are building a new building or doing a lot of renovations on a building, that percent then has to go towards public art, the percent of the total project cost. Local CRAs, the Community Reinvestment Act, district tax increment financing, which mostly we just hear called CRAs. CRAs and community development block grants are another way that typically cities get money for public art. There are private public partnerships where the city gives funds to a private entity to manage a public art program. That's what we have. That's sort of what we have in Columbia. The city relies on One Columbia for some projects, the majority of projects. You can fund a public art project through private funding, like public art grants, and partnerships with educational institutes and museums. And again, like I mentioned earlier, private developers sometimes will fund their own public art projects. Here in Columbia, if you are in the downtown district and you have first floor parking, you have to make some kind of aesthetic treatment as a trade-off for that. So a lot of the places that are being built around Columbia right now in the downtown area will have murals or sculptural attachments on the first floor. Sometimes private developers do it because they want to, and in some cities they're mandated to. They're mandated in the percent for art program to put certain amount of money towards public art in their project. So before we turn it over to McClellan, I wanted to say a few things about the artist commissioning process. So how do artists get public art jobs? You know, does someone contact you for the artwork? Do you have to go for it yourself? As a commissioning agency, One Columbia usually does calls to artists, and those are open competitions. Sometimes we'll do a direct commission or a limited competition. Depends on the project and what the project calls for. An arts administrator, if we're doing a call to artists, will do a RFQ or an RFP. If you're not familiar with those, a request for, and it's a little bit different in the art world, but a request for qualification, artists send in their past work and usually some other documents that are required to be reviewed by a selection committee, but they're not asked for a specific proposal. After reviewing the applicant's qualifications, typically the committee shortlists a smaller pool to then ask them to develop a proposal and pay them for their work. So the other one, RFP, is a request for proposal, and that asks artists to send their qualifications and a proposal. Except for in a very small instance of cases, I don't issue RFPs. We don't issue RFPs, and I usually encourage artists not to apply for RFPs because they're basically asking you to do work for free, to do a design for free. So what does a call to artists look like? What information does it have in there? Project description, the goals of the project, and those goals are come from the community meetings and the committee members. Description of the location and site plans, depending on if it's a new building or not. The history of the organizations, the history of the community, because not only is when you have those meetings with the community, are you getting guideline and goals from them? Also the site the site can inform the artwork as well. So application requirements, or what they have to submit, is usually a letter of interest, a resume, and images of their past work. I don't know if we have any public artists on here, but if we do, there's a couple places you can look for open calls, callsforentry.org, publicartist.org, and codaworks.com. And in CodaWorks, there's an X instead of a K. So it's WRX.com. Once an artist gets selected for a job, the first thing we do is issue them a contract. And it's very much like what you would see with anybody else in a standard contract. We get a design, the timeline, the deliverables, how we're going to pay them, the compensation details. And one of the really important things that we make sure is in all of our contracts is copyright and right to reproduce images. The copyright always stays with the artist unless they decide to sell it. And then that's a completely different discussion that we have with the artist to make sure they're compensated for their artwork in that way as well. So let me skip forward so you can see some of the things, just a small fraction of the things that we have in Columbia. Another way to get funding, when we were talking before, oh no, I think I actually printed the same page twice. Yeah, so let me speak about these projects real quickly. On the left is called Hanging. It's by a local artist, Eileen Blythe, and this is a great participatory project. There are little drums there that you can sit down and play on. The one on the top right is our local transportation system, the Comet. They did an art bus. So we put out a call to artists and had an artist design artwork for one of our buses. And below that is a mural in a neighborhood where they're trying to draw attention to they were using art as a traffic calming method. The street that it's on, Millwood, is a very dangerous street for pedestrians and bike riders. So this is a way to get people to stop speeding down the street if they stop and look around and see something like a mural or a piece of sculpture. The one on the left here is Architecture of Strength, and it was commissioned by City of Women. This is an example of how the community can come together to fund and make the goals for a public art project. As you can, it's a little bit difficult to see, but this is sort of a woman standing sideways. There's no head, but the rest of it is the shape of the woman. And here are a few other pieces, and I think these are actually all in our Arts and Culture District in Columbia, which is called the Vista. And the one on the bottom left as an example for something that needed maintenance, the crank mechanism got broken first, and then the gong itself was actually stolen. So we were lucky that we had a little bit of money in our maintenance fund to be able to completely get the gong replaced. But because we had money, we were also able to have the artist completely repaint it and retool all the mechanisms. I think I went through that a little faster than I meant to, but I am very excited about any questions that anybody has.
Wow, I feel like I've learned so much in that short amount of time. Really fascinating. Thank you for all that. Yes, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. There's some, and I feel the same way. Someone commented they didn't even think about the lifespan and the maintenance of public art, and that had never occurred to me either. It's just something I think you don't think about looking at it. And also the mandate was really interesting.
Denver has a fantastic arts and culture office. They have Percent for Art, and I know some of the folks there, and they really do an excellent job. They're a great example of what good public art administration can be.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you. And also just the process of getting if you're an artist and you want to do a public art project, like that's some really, really great information. I know some artists that aren't here tonight that I'm definitely gonna, when this goes on the YouTube, I'm gonna forward this to you because that's just really excellent information. Yeah, there's just a lot of things in the comments saying like how informative your PowerPoint was, how interesting, things they didn't know. It's really, really great. Thank you so much, Pamela. Thank you. Really well explained. So Tabitha, yeah, it was very well explained, very clear. Yeah, really wonderful. And thank you for all the work that you do to help us have beautiful artwork in art. Well, I live in Columbia, so in the city I live in.
Hopefully, our next project is going to be something in the Franklin Street Tunnel.
Yeah,
So yeah, keep an
Nice.
eye out for that. Yeah. Hopefully we
yeah.
make it, that would be one of those places where art would be building a community space. Right now, it's not really used that much. But if we had a public art project in there, it would definitely be something that would drive the cultural tourism and also give people a sense of identity of like, oh yeah, when you come to Columbia, you have to come see this really cool thing.
I love that. I love that idea. And yeah, and it's as of now, it's not getting much use. So like what a perfect spot. And someone says, love the explanation. Thank you for all your knowledge and your willingness to share. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So we're gonna turn it over to McClellan, who's an actual public artist. McClellan, I first just want to apologize. Botched your bio. I don't know what happened there.
No, I guess I think I sent it to you twice and you read it twice. That's all right.
And like, and then I was reading it and I was like, wait a minute, I think I'm repeating myself. But anyway,
No, it's
I
okay.
apologize.
No, absolutely.
And also, I realized when I got to it, is it Trump Loy? Is that how you pronounce it?
Trump.
Okay, I
Trump-Loy.
knew I botched that too when I said it. I was like, I know I'm not saying this right.
Yeah, it's the art of making a surface look like another surface, pretty much.
Yeah, and I love
Yeah.
that style work. That's one of those words I'm never quite sure how to say when it comes to
I know. I wish there was an easier one.
But McClellan, thank you so much. But I'm just gonna turn it over to you. And again, if anyone has questions, please put them in the chat.
Well, thank you guys. And my name is McClellan Douglas, and I am a large scale artist. Mainly known for my mural work, but I'm also a sculptor. And Pam, who was just talking earlier, has been a wonderful resource for the Columbia arts community and One Columbia. So if any artists from the area want to get anything done, she is your quickest route. She's cuts the red tape for you. But yeah, I've been trying to produce public artwork since I've been an adult. And I've often heard from people that they've, like the city kind of sees it as an extravagant over basic needs, and I've never really seen it as an extravagance as much as a public need. I think, like Pam was saying earlier, art has a really wonderful effect on your mental health. And there have been a number of studies done that prove that out. And for me, public art has had a huge effect on my life. My first memory was my father carrying me on his shoulders to go see a massive mural that's downtown in Columbia. It's called a Tunnel Vision by an artist named Blue Sky. And it basically looks like the building's opening up and you can go through it. And it just kind of blew my mind when I was a kid. And it got such a reaction from me that my father started taking me to different murals around the city. And it got to where I would, plead with he and my mom to take me to the new mural. And we didn't have a lot back then. I think there were like 4 different murals. One of them was it had a number of portraits on it, and the artist's depiction was of him actually having painted most of the painting but leaving one unfinished, and you could see him on the ladder working on the piece, and that was the mural. And it just kind of blew my mind, like he was breaking the fourth wall. And I think at that time I kind of knew exactly what I wanted to do. And so I started I was able to make a living at first with my portrait work, but as soon as I could, I wanted to go bigger, and I started creating murals in people's homes and in businesses. And Pam mentioned interactive artwork as being one of the new kind of styles of murals, and that's one. My company is called Interactive Artworks, and we do murals in a way that they become participatory experiences for the people that are seeing them. And we add black light, and we'll use UV lamps and put them on strobe, so that if I have a scene that looks like a thunderous background, it's strobing and it actually looks like it's alive. And we also do projection mapping on top of it to create all different kinds of effects that really I'm watching people get excited by it, and it gets me more excited. But yeah, I mean, it made a huge impact on my life. When I was younger, I had a terrible time in school, and I had a horrible time concentrating on anything. And my teachers, but I love to draw, and eventually the teachers that were good teachers, they understood that if you just let me draw, then like not only would I not disrupt the class anymore, but I actually started to get more work done, and I started to do better in school when when I was able to do that. And so I know that for me, that first that first experience has always stuck with me. I've never lost it. And I've told Blue Sky a number of times that I don't know that I'd be painting if I didn't walk across that mural that day. And I think it's such an important thing for for our cities to invest in. And there's a lot of ways that they can do that. They can do there are tax incentives that they can give companies for coming into a city. And I'm sorry, I want people coming over here. But yeah, there are tax incentives that you can give businesses that will give them the freedom to feel like it's okay to spend a little bit of money on artwork for their businesses, and also in newer housing developments. Another thing that I've done in order to get public art done is to reach out to larger companies like Pepsi, Coke, companies that need advertisement. Oftentimes, like your alcohol companies, your beer and your liquor companies, they don't have to be about the murals. Don't have to be about them. If you just put sponsored by, and they will pay for some artwork. And I mean, your best route is through um, Pam, or a city entity, because they'll help you to be able to like protect it better. But there are other avenues, and um, I've actually reached out to a number of local banks that have agreed to fund a number of projects that haven't gotten done because the owners of the building didn't like the contracts yet. But there are a bunch of different avenues out there for an artist to pursue adding to their community, and that's something that public art did for me. I mean, it gave me kind of a calling, and so I try to do the same thing with my art. When I produce it, I think about the community that I'm working in, and who resides there. So, oftentimes, like the project I'm doing in Houston, there's a large Latino population, and black and white. So I try to make sure that everybody's represented and everybody feels included. And that's been something that I've been very passionate about since the beginning. And yeah, I just there's a lot of resources that you can use, but yeah, hold on. I'm sorry, I'm losing like connection.
Had
But
to add, McClellan was
yeah,
nice
if any,
enough to join us while he's out on the road. He's actually out on the road doing murals, and he was nice enough to stop driving and do this for us.
yeah, I was actually on the way home from doing a project in Houston, Texas. I actually predominantly do work for adventure parks and like amusement parks, trampoline parks, that sort of thing. They're always looking for artists, and especially the ones that do the work we do. But yeah, I wish there were more opportunities locally, and I'm working on helping Pam and some other people produce more works in Columbia, because I think we're a little bit behind the rest of the country as far as that goes. I'm on the road so much. I've seen every city in so far we've done 163 trampoline parks internationally. So I've seen every community, and the ones that are the healthiest and the ones that seem to be doing the best are the ones that I notice the most public artwork. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that goes hand in hand. Um, but yeah, I hope that I've you know giving y'all some information, and if y'all have any questions, text them, and I'll try to get them answered. But yeah, I appreciate y'all letting me talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, McClellan. It's great. I love that we got these two different perspectives, sort of the administrative point of view of how it happens, and then to actually speak to an artist and from their point of view. And I love just your perspective. And Blue Sky, that mural that you're talking about, has such a impact on me as a child as well. I remember being in Baptist Hospital. I was getting my tonsils removed or something as a kid, and my hospital window actually faced that mural, and just being mesmerized by it, and just staring and staring and staring at it.
I have heard other people say that before as well, that they've been in the hospital and looked out at that mural and it meant a lot to them.
Yeah, right. I think that's so special. When you said that as a kid, it just, whoa, I was taken right back there, and it really meant a lot to me. And I would just spend all my time staring at that mural. And Pam, do you know that mural has been up for such a long time, right? Since like the 70s. So I wonder what kind of maintenance, surely that has been
late 70s.
Yeah,
He's repainted it 3 times.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Not last year, but the year before, he actually touched it up again.
Got you. Oh gosh,
No, it's
it is
wonderful.
it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
internationally known.
Hmm.
yeah, it's really, really a great mural. And I love his chain links too, that I know that Pamela, that was in one of your slides. I've always loved
Yeah.
those chain links.
Yeah,
Never
yeah,
bust. And it was such
Yeah.
it's an interesting project. We talk about going through like all the right channels for a public art project, and he just snuck out there one night and put it up between the two buildings, and that was that.
That's
hilarious.
yeah, I understand that strategy. Definitely.
Sometimes you got to do it
Yeah.
that way.
I mean, most of the mural work that I've created in Columbia has been on a whim. The one I did of Bob Marley and 5 Points was during COVID. I just didn't really didn't have anything to do, and Jocelyn and Ali had a wall, so I went out there and did, yeah.
I don't think I realized that was you, Matella. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Right
Yeah.
on.
If you go to the
Yeah, it
public,
runs a gamut.
the Columbia Public Art Directory, McClellan actually has quite a few murals here in Columbia, and you can go and just type in his name, and you can see all the ones here in Columbia by him.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna have to utilize that
Some
more.
yeah, some I'd like to paint over, but some of the new ones I like. We all hate our old work. All artists hate their old stuff.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone's saying in the comments, oh, great resources. How amazing art can touch people like that. Great insight. Absolutely. I just agree. And I feel like it just makes such a difference in our community, and it can really just change the whole feel of a community. I feel like public art can. And I'm just so grateful for both of you and the work that you both do to provide public art in our community. McClellan, I did put a link to your website in the comments, so anyone can go and click down on there and be able to go to his website. And then I saw that Pamela put her social media handles in there, so be able to get in touch with people that way if you want to. And then I would say in about 2 weeks, I don't do it, somebody else does. This talk will be up on the Atlantic Institute YouTube channel, which is Atlantic SC. That's the name of the YouTube channel. So just be on the lookout for that. I know some people in the comments are talking about how they wanted to share it with some other people. And I'm just going to check in one more time with our comments. Yeah, just praises, praises, praises. And I agree so much. So thank you all. Thank you everyone for coming. Crazy to believe that art has something to do with the success and growth of a place. Yeah, it's I feel like it really goes hand in hand. I feel like it could really change the way the community feels. Definitely, for sure. So yes, thank you all for being here. McClellan and Pam, thank you so very much. And please be on the lookout for future discussions, atlanticsc.org to see what's coming up next. And I appreciate you all so much. And McClellan, please drive safe on your way back to North Carolina.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to stop recording. And that is it for tonight. Thank you all so much. Everyone's saying thank you in the chat. Thanks, y'all.
Guys.